When it came to heartfelt country music, Barbara Mandrell and her talented sisters could sing it like nobody else. Sometimes it felt like Barbara didn't even need to open her eyes to pour her soul into a song. Together, the Mandrell sisters lit up the stage and the screen in the 1970s and 80s. They were a powerhouse trio, giving us unforgettable hits and stealing hearts across America. But behind all that fame and success, things weren't always so perfect. Like many famous groups, tensions started to rise behind the scenes. So what really happened that caused the Mandrell sisters to go their separate ways? Stick around because we're about to spill all the juicy details. Who is Barbara Mandrell? Barbara Mandrell was born on Christmas Day in 1948 in Houston, Texas. She was the oldest of 3 girls born to Mary Ellen and Irby Mandrell. Later, the family moved to Corpus Christi, where her dad worked as a police officer and her mom was a music teacher. It was there that Barbara's love for music really began. At home, she was always singing and playing music, and even at a young age, she had an amazing ear for sound. She once shared a memory from when she was just a little girl, playing outside with her cousins. They were singing, "I've Been Working on the Railroad," when she suddenly heard a harmony in her head and sang it. That moment, she said, made her realize how magical music could be. Barbara didn't wait long to start performing. Her very first time singing for an audience was at her family's church, where she sang a gospel song called Gospel Boogie. But singing wasn't her only talent. She could play instruments, too. Her mom taught her how to read music and play the accordion before she even started first grade. When Barbara was 6, the family moved again, this time to Oceanside, California. Her dad opened a music store, and Barbara kept learning. In school, she joined the band and played the saxophone. Around the same time, she started learning steel guitar from one of her dad's friends, Norman Hamlet. After a year of hard work, her father took her to a music trade show in Chicago. There, she performed on the steel guitar and caught the attention of country music star Joe Memphis. That moment would help launch her career in music. Music career. In 1960, when Barbara Mandrell was just 11 years old, country music star Joe Memphis brought her onto his show in Las Vegas. As part of his act, Barbara played the steel guitar and wowed the crowds. Memphis also helped her land a regular spot on the popular California country TV show Town Hall Party. At first, Barbara felt like she was the only girl playing instruments in a world full of men. But on Town Hall Party, she realized she wasn't alone. Men dominated the world of country music, but I looked around and discovered there were more women than you might have thought, she later said. During her school summer breaks, Barbara would head back to Las Vegas to perform. By 1962, at just 13 years old, she was touring with country legends like Johnny Cash and Patsy Cline. Since Barbara was underage, she even shared hotel rooms with Patsy Cline during the tour. She also played steel guitar for big names like Red Foley, Little Jimmy Dickens, and Tex Ritter. At 14, Barbara's parents put together the Mandrell family band. Barbara played steel guitar, her mother Mary was on piano, and her father Irby sang lead vocals. They brought in 2 more musicians to complete the band. One of them was a drummer named Ken Dudney, whom Barbara would later marry in 1967. The family band performed all over military bases across the country and mixed things up with songs from artists like the Beatles. During this time, Barbara also picked up new skills, learning to play the banjo and bass guitar. But Barbara's teenage years weren't just about music. In 1965, she was voted Miss Oceanside, California. She also stayed active in her school's marching band, chorus, and student council. She graduated from high school in 1967. Soon after, she married Ken Dudney and decided to step away from the spotlight to become a full-time housewife. Her final tour with the Mandrell family band took her all the way to Vietnam, where they performed for American troops during the war. When Barbara came home, she learned that Ken had been sent overseas for his Navy pilot training. Feeling lonely, she went to visit her parents, who had recently moved to Nashville. One night, They attended a show at the Grand Ole Opry. As Barbara sat in the audience, she realized something big. She missed performing. "I wasn't cut out to be in the audience," she later said. With her father as her manager, Barbara soon found herself playing steel guitar in a Nashville club on Printer's Alley. She wasn't just playing instruments. She started singing, too. Her talent caught everyone's attention, including 6 different record labels. One of those watching was Billy Sherrill, a famous country music producer. And in 1969, Barbara Mandrell signed with Columbia Records and officially launched her solo recording career. Barbara's singing transition. Barbara Mandrell's singing career officially kicked off with covers of R&B and soul songs. In 1969, she released her first single under Columbia Records, a heartfelt version of Otis Redding's classic, "I've Been Loving You Too Long to Stop Now." The song made it onto the Billboard country chart, marking the beginning of her recording success. Next came "Playin' Around with Love" in 1970, written by producer Billy Sherrill. That track became her first to break into the top 20, landing at number 18 on the country chart. Barbara continued exploring soulful country by covering Aretha Franklin's "Do Right Woman, Do Right Man" and Roy Head's "Treat Him Right." In 1971, she released her debut album, Treat Him Right, which featured all of her charting singles from 1969 to 1971, along with other covers of songs by Ivory Joe Hunter, Joe South, and more. That same year, she was named Top New Female Vocalist by the Academy of Country Music. Just a year later, in 1972, she became a proud member of the Grand Ole Opry. Also in 1971, Barbara scored her first top 10 solo hit with "Tonight My Baby's Coming Home." The success continued in 1972 with her cover of Joe Tex's "Show Me," which also reached the top 20. Around this time, she began recording duets with country singer David Houston. Their first duet, "After Closing Time," became a major hit, peaking at number 6 on the U.S. Billboard Country Chart and number 4 in Canada's RPM Country Survey. Barbara and David's musical partnership produced several other hits between 1970 and 1974, including I Love You in 1973, which also climbed into the top 10. Their songs were later featured on the album A Perfect Match. Music critics took notice of Barbara's blend of country, R&B, and soul. In country music, The Rough Guide, author Kurt Wolff described her early sound as colorful, spirited country soul. He explained that although the songs weren't traditional country, they had a raw emotional quality that made them stand out. In another review, writers Mary A. Buffwack and Robert K. Orman noted her raspy, emotional voice that made her R&B covers especially powerful. Her vocals had a hoarse, urgent quality, they wrote, calling her style a perfect fit for what they called blue-eyed soul. AllMusic reviewer Greg Adams agreed, calling her early Columbia recordings some of the best Barbara Mandrell ever made. Still, not all critics were convinced. Some felt her songs lacked a strong identity. Reviewer Stephen Thomas Erlewine once commented that producer Billy Sherrill seemed unsure how to shape her sound. He wrote that her version of Merle Haggard's "Today I Started Loving You Again" felt soft and comforting, rather than carrying the heartbreak the song was known for. But everything changed in 1973 when Columbia released what many called her breakthrough hit, The Midnight Oil. The song told the story of a woman cheating on her husband while pretending she was working late, something rarely heard from a female perspective at the time. It became her second solo top 10 hit, reaching number 7 on the Billboard Country Chart and number 5 in Canada. The album of the same name also did well, climbing to number 8 on the Billboard Country Albums Chart. In 1974, she followed up with "This Time I Almost Made It," another country soul-styled tune that landed in the top 20. Still, Barbara later admitted she didn't always feel confident about her work during the Columbia years. Speaking to Biography, she said, There have been many times when I thought other people might be better singers or better musicians or prettier than me, but then I would hear Daddy's voice telling me to never say never, and I would find a way to squeeze an extra inch or two out of what God had given me. In 1975, Barbara Mandrell decided it was time for a change. She left Columbia Records, closing one chapter and getting ready to open another. In 1975, Barbara took a major step forward by signing a new recording contract with ABC Records, which later became part of MCA Records. Working with producer Tom Collins, she adopted a more pop-influenced sound that helped her reach an even bigger audience. Her first single for ABC was Standing Room Only in 1975, and it became her first song to break into the top 5 on the Billboard Country Chart. She followed that success with 2 more hits, That's What Friends Are For and Midnight Angel, both reaching the top 20. Tom Collins also brought more R&B flavor into Barbara's music, which pushed her popularity even higher. In 1977, her covers of Denise LaSalle's Married But Not to Each Other and Shirley Brown's Woman to Woman became huge hits, both reaching the top 5 on the country charts in the U.S. and Canada. Woman to Woman even made it onto the Billboard Hot 100, marking Barbara's first crossover onto the pop chart. These songs were featured on her 6th and 7th studio albums, both released in 1977. Barbara reached the peak of her commercial success in the late 1970s by talking about things like infidelity and cheating in her songs. In 1978, she scored her first #1 hit on both the Billboard and RPM country charts with Sleeping Single in a Double Bed. The momentum didn't stop there. If anything, it just started. By 1979, she released a powerful version of Luther Ingram's R&B classic, If Loving You Is Wrong, I Don't Want to Be Right. The song shot to #1 on the U.S. and Canadian country charts and also crossed over to the pop world, entering the top 40 on the Billboard Hot 100 and Canadian pop charts. It even climbed into the top 10 on the Billboard Adult Contemporary chart. Both of these smash singles were featured on her hit album Moods, 1978, which became a top 10 country album. Her next album, Just for the Record, 1979, was another top 10 success on the Billboard LP chart. Just for the Record gave us more crossover favorites like Fooled by a Feeling and Years. Now fully established as a major star, Barbara became a must-see concert headliner. Her live shows were exciting and full of energy, with choreographed dance routines, stunning costume changes, and Barbara herself showing off her talent by playing multiple musical instruments. One of her dazzling performances was even turned into a cable TV special called The Lady Is a Champ. Barbara also became a familiar face on national television programs and won the Country Music Association's Female Vocalist of the Year award in 1979, another big milestone in her incredible career. How Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters was formed. By this time, Barbara was considered one of country music's biggest stars. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, she scored a string of #1 and top 10 country hits, with a few songs even crossing over onto the pop charts. Her high-energy concerts, filled with dazzling costume changes and lively choreography, made her stand out even more. Her powerful stage presence caught the eye of NBC producer Marty Krofft, who offered her a chance to have her own television show. At first, Barbara turned him down. "My father was in agreement with me. I would never do a network television show. We thought that was sudden death to a recording artist," she later shared with the Tennessean, but after multiple offers, she finally agreed to give it a shot. Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters was hosted by Barbara, alongside her younger sisters, Earlene and Louise. The show was co-produced by Sid and Marty Krofft, Ernest Chambers, and Frank Pepiot, and directed by Bob Henry and Jack Regis. The music for the show was arranged by the Dennis McCarthy Orchestra, along with Barbara's touring band, the Do-Rights. The variety show aired weekly on NBC for 60 minutes per episode across 2 seasons, totaling 36 episodes. Taping took place at the Sunset Gower Studios in Los Angeles, California. Originally, the show aired on Tuesday nights, but later moved to Saturday nights. In 1982, it bounced back to Tuesdays, before ending its final months again on Saturdays. The format of the show was a mix of music performances and comedy sketches. Much of the comedy was built around the sisters' playful relationship. According to writers Tim Brooks and Earl Marsh, the sisters engaged in tongue-in-cheek sibling rivalry, with Barbara playing the serious, pushy sister, while Earlene was the sexy, vain one. The musical side of the show gave the sisters a chance to show off their talents. Barbara often played the banjo, steel guitar, piano, and saxophone. Louise was seen playing the banjo and fiddle, while Earlene took to the drums. The show also welcomed a wide range of guest stars, including legends like Ray Charles, Bob Hope, and Glenn Campbell. Every episode usually ended on a high note, featuring a medley of traditional gospel songs. Why was the group disbanded? After attaining so much commercial success, Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters came to an unexpected end. Not because the show wasn't popular, but because it was physically demanding beyond belief. Although NBC had plans to continue the series, Barbara Mandrell herself chose to leave after just 2 seasons, trying to juggle a full-blown singing career while leading a weekly television show drove her toward exhaustion. The one and only reason I will not continue is because I was under severe strain in my throat. The hours, some days 14 and some days 16, were unbelievable, Barbara explained in 1982. The relentless schedule left her no choice but to take cortisone shots just to make it through tapings. Eventually, doctors warned her that if she didn't quit, the damage to her voice could become permanent. At the time the show was canceled, it was attracting a staggering 40 million viewers, proof of just how beloved the Mandrell sisters had become. Years later, in 2007, fans were given a second chance to enjoy the magic when the show was released on DVD under the title Best of Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell Sisters Show. In 1982, she made the difficult decision to end the show after its 2-year run. I'm the only person that I know of that has ever left a television series with a 5-year contract, she later commented, with a mix of pride and sadness. Though serious voice problems forced her off television, Barbara Mandrell didn't stay down for long. She bounced back in 1983 with The Lady is a Champ, a dazzling Las Vegas show that was later turned into an HBO television special. But just as she was reclaiming her spotlight, tragedy struck. In 1984, she was involved in a devastating car crash that left her with multiple injuries and a long road to recovery. True to her spirit, recovery didn't mark the end. It marked a new beginning. Mandrell returned with more hit records, national tours, acting roles on television, and a best-selling autobiography, Get to the Heart, My Story, published in 1990. In 1997, after decades of entertaining fans, Barbara Mandrell announced her retirement. That October, she took her final bow during a special concert at the Grand Ole Opry House, filmed as Barbara Mandrell and the Do-Rights The Last Dance and aired on the Nashville network. Even after retiring, her legacy only grew. In 2006, BNA Records honored her with She Was Country, When Country Wasn't Cool, a tribute to Barbara Mandrell, featuring stars like Dierks Bentley, Kenny Chesney, Reba McEntire, and Brad Paisley. The honors kept coming. In 2007, Barbara received a star on Nashville's Music City Walk of Fame, and 2 years later, she was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, a fitting tribute to a woman whose talent changed the face of country music forever. What did the Mandrell sisters say? While Barbara Mandrell decided to step away from the spotlight to focus on her health, her sisters, Louise and Earlene, chose a different path. Rather than speaking publicly about the group's disbandment, they quietly continued on, performing and recording as solo artists. Louise Mandrell kept her music alive, performing at selected special events and corporate occasions. In December 2007, she took the stage in Washington, D.C., performing alongside the National Army Band. Over the Christmas and New Year seasons in 2008 and 2009, she brought festive cheer with her multi-instrumental dinner show, Joy to the World, at the Opryland Hotel in Nashville. She didn't stop there. In 2010, she announced plans for a brand new production, The Gift. In 2009, Louise signed with Stradivarius Records, setting her sights on recording an album of beloved country classics, as well as a Christmas-themed collection. She later teamed up with fellow 80s country superstar Lee Greenwood for select tour dates, including a 6-week run at the Welk Resort Theater in Branson from September 12th to October 22, 2011. That holiday season, she hosted her final Christmas show at Gaylord the Opryland, titled Louise Mandrell's Christmas Dinner Party, running from November 18th through December the 25th, 2011. After more than 30 years, Louise returned with a brand new studio album, Playing Favorites, released on October 4th, 2019, and produced by Buddy Cannon. Around the same time, she stepped back onto a familiar stage. On October 3rd, 2019, she performed at the Ryman Auditorium for Opry Country Classics, her first performance there in 50 years. Later that November, she appeared live on the Grand Ole Opry from the Ryman once again. In a full-circle moment, on July 30th, 2022, Louise and Earlene reunited to celebrate sister Barbara Mandrell's 50th anniversary as a Grand Ole Opry member. Louise continued sharing her love of country classics, returning to the Opry stage on October 13th, 2022, December 4th, 2022, and March 9th, 2023. Outside of music, Louise built a career as a spokesperson, famously representing Sanderson Farms' Miss Goldie Chicken for 2 decades, and starring in commercials for RC Cola with the catchy Me and My RC jingle. Most recently, she appeared alongside Jimmy Fortune of the Statler Brothers in a Time Life infomercial promoting the Classic Country Box Set, 2022 edition. Meanwhile, Earlene Mandrell carved out a career of her own. Not only did she continue performing and recording with help from her producer husband, Pat Holt, she also ventured into writing books. Known for her wit, Earlene captured 2 Comedy Act of the Year awards from Music City News and quickly expanded into television, film, and video. Fans adored her 8-year run on Hee Haw, 1983, 1991, where she charmed audiences as one of the Hee Haw Honeys. Earlene also made memorable appearances on The Love Boat, The Oprah Winfrey Show, The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson, The Mike Douglas Show, and a string of game shows like Password Plus, 1981, and Match Game, 1982. She co-hosted television programs like Bright Lights and Country Nights, and This Week in Country Music, and participated in televised charity events alongside icons like George Lindsay, Bob Hope, and Sammy Davis Jr. As a model, Arlene became the face of brands like CoverGirl Shoes, Lens Skin Care Products, and 9 West Shoes. In May 2015, she reached a new milestone by releasing her first single, We Will Stand, which soared to #1 on the indie charts, proof that Earlene Mandrell's star power hadn't dimmed one bit. Struggles Barbara Mandrell has faced. On September 11th, 1984, Barbara Mandrell and her 2 children were involved in a devastating head-on car crash near their home in Nashville. The other car, driven by 19-year-old college student Mark White, crossed the center line of the road, causing the collision with Mandrell's Jaguar XJ. Tragically, White was killed instantly in the crash. Mandrell's children, fortunately, suffered only minor injuries and were released from the hospital shortly after. However, Mandrell sustained critical injuries, including a broken femur, a shattered ankle, an injured knee, and a concussion that led to temporary brain damage. The physical toll of the accident left Mandrell in severe pain for months. Her knee injuries were particularly painful, and recovery was a slow and grueling process. As her father, Irby Mandrell, explained, Barbara pushed herself daily to overcome the limitations of her knee. Every day she's trying to make it exceed what it did the day before, he said, highlighting her determination to regain full mobility. In addition to the physical pain, Mandrell's brain injury caused a temporary shift in her personality, along with memory loss. She recalled referring to herself in the third person, saying things like, "That was her," or "She did that." It took her a full year to recover physically from the crash, and even after that, the effects of the head injury lingered for years. In a 2003 interview, Mandrell mentioned that it took about 3 years for her to fully recover from the brain injury, and she still felt lingering pain in her ankle. One crucial change that came from the crash was Mandrell's shift in attitude towards seat belts. Before the accident, she had never been a consistent seatbelt user, but moments before the crash, she noticed her children playing unbelted in the back seat of the car. Concerned for their safety, she insisted they all buckle up. She later credited the seat belts for saving their lives. Following the crash, Mandrell became a passionate advocate for seatbelt use, appearing in commercials to promote their importance. She also campaigned for arthritis awareness and organ donation, becoming an honorary chairman of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in 1985. The crash also led to a legal battle that created a great deal of controversy. Under Tennessee state law, Mandrell was required to sue the White family for $10.3 million in damages in order to collect from her own insurance company. Although Mandrell's legal team reached out to the White family, explaining that she did not want money from them but needed to follow legal procedure, the lawsuit still caused a stir among her fans. In 1995, Mandrell addressed the public backlash, saying, "I'm not blaming the public. I would have felt the way they felt." Through this painful chapter in her life, Mandrell not only recovered, but also used her experience to raise awareness on important issues, all while continuing to move forward with her career and her family. Barbara Mandrell's marriage. Barbara Mandrell's marriage to former musician and Navy pilot Ken Dudney has been a cornerstone of her personal life. The couple tied the knot in 1967 after a unique and enduring romance. Dudney, who had originally been hired as the drummer for Mandrell's family band, first met Barbara when she was just 14, and he was 21. At that time, Dudney was engaged to another woman, but his feelings for Mandrell were undeniable. He broke off the engagement, and by 2003, Mandrell reflected, "I'd dated him since I was 14, and I just couldn't wait to graduate high school so I could be Mrs. Ken Dudney." At the time of their marriage, Ken Dudney made the selfless decision to leave his career as a Navy pilot to support Barbara's blossoming career. The couple's love story continued to grow, and they welcomed their first child, Matthew, in 1970. Their family grew further with the arrival of daughter Jamie in 1976, and their third child, Nathan, in 1985. In 1988, the Mandrell family made an ambitious move, building the Fontanelle Mansion, one of the largest log cabin homes in the world. The grand house featured 6 bedrooms, 13 bathrooms, 2 kitchens, 5 fireplaces, and even a helicopter landing pad. However, in 2002, Barbara decided to sell the mansion to downsize, and it was auctioned off. The mansion, now a popular tourist attraction, has been transformed into a hub that includes a restaurant, a hotel, an outdoor music venue, and even an indoor shooting range. Jamie Mandrell, their daughter, worked as the human resources manager at Fontanelle until 2017, when she shifted her career focus to help those struggling with addiction by placing them in suitable rehabilitation programs. As for their marriage, Barbara and Ken's relationship has been built on love, humor, and faith. Barbara told The Boot, "There are times when Ken and I would like to put each other through a wall. It happens, but we married for forever. And keeping God at the center of our lives has made it work and made it blessed and happy." Despite their occasional disagreements, described as yellers and screamers, the couple's commitment to one another has remained unshakable. Barbara's passion for her marriage shines through as she says, "But we're also passionate about making up." Barbara Mandrell's personal and professional journey is filled with highs and lows, yet her devotion to her family and faith has remained a constant throughout. Do you have any memories of Barbara Mandrell and the Mandrell sisters, or Barbara's remarkable career? Feel free to share your thoughts with us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories and updates. Also, check out the next video on your screen. You'll love it.